Hello, everyone, and happy May Day, and a very warm welcome to you all to the 4 a.m. Peace Experience, initiated to learn the benefits of early morning meditation. And a special welcome too to our 100 plus members of the Whatsaapp support group who are already taking great benefit from the 4 a.m. Peace Experience. My name is Peter. I'm an educator. I'm passionate about bringing living values education to children all around the world of all ages. I've been meditating now for just over 20 years. And like each one of you joining today, I began my early morning peaceful meditation experiences over 20 years ago. And I can wholeheartedly express my gratitude for the countless everyday and deep down benefits that early morning meditation has brought to me, especially calmness and silence and an inner glow of happiness. And I believe it's a journey we all deserve to take. Today, the 4 a.m. Peace Experience is honored to welcome our guest speaker, Charlie Hogg, who will share with us on the theme of developing pure consciousness, mastering your senses. When I think of Charlie, and I know he's listening now, waiting to share his words of wisdom with you all, I always see warm-heartedness, love, a broad smile, and smiling eyes. He's currently Chief Executive of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, Chairman of the Board of Directors, and active member of the BK International Coordinating Group for major projects and direction of the organization. And as well as being a meditator for 45 years, he's a world traveler. And his words of practical, authentic, and simplistic wisdom has reached the hearts and souls of so many all around the world, in conferences, in seminars, in workshops, and more recently by Zoom. So today, it's our joy to welcome Charlie to take us all on our inward journey to develop pure consciousness and master of our senses. And if there are any questions for Charlie, please put them in the chat box and we'll explore them after his sharing. So thank you all for joining us. Your presence is very much appreciated. Charlie, I can see your smile and your smiling eyes. Oh, over to you now.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter, for your extremely loving and welcome, if I can say that. It's so lovely to be with everybody. And when I first heard about the 4 a.m. Peace webinar, I must admit I was amazed that such a thing existed. But I think it's absolutely wonderful because, as Peter so beautifully expressed, that the early morning hours, the time of nectar, as we often call them. And I think in my life experience, it's the time to really experience God and experience a pure consciousness, perhaps in a natural way. And all of us have a journey in our lives. And I think I just love to hear people's story of what brought them to where they are and who they are. But for me, when I was in my 20s, I actually traveled the world and I lived with all religious communities. And what I found, no matter where I lived, that they would wake up early in the morning and enjoy that time of the day as a real time to sort of step into the most elevated consciousness possible. And it's something which I love to do. I wake up every morning at 3:30 in the morning. I've done it for such a long time. And in fact, it was a huge life transformation for me, because when I started my practice of meditation, I was living in London. And in fact, I had a job with the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company. And I used to work at the show. So the show would start about 8 p.m., finish about 11, we'd pack up. And so I was often going to bed in the early morning hours around 4 a.m. And then I began to meditate and I began to experience how to fine tune my mind at that time. And when I fine tune my mind at that time, it seems to influence my whole day and my relationships. And what I love to do is when I wake up early, I love to be very silent. And the first step for me to develop my consciousness is to reconnect, not only in an intellectual way, but to experience my eternal self and my original nature of peace. And what I love to do is sort of step back from everything temporary. You know, I often think the whole culture of this world is investing in that which is temporary. And what I love to do is just gently step back from identifying with what I do. You know how in life we identify with my roles and my responsibilities. I'm a parent, I'm a partner, I'm a colleague, I'm a boss, whatever. And I just love to step back, let go, withdraw. And so I start this incredible inner journey to my intrinsic, essential self. And as I do, I begin to feel lighter and lighter inside. And by that, it's almost like the mind begins to cool down. And then I begin to step or let go, identifying with what my body represents. All the labels, the gender, the nationality, the culture, the color, whatever it may be, the age. And I just love to sort of step back, withdraw, let go. And so the journey continues deeper and deeper towards my intrinsic self. And then even I love to let go, identifying with what has happened. Let go, identifying with all the stories recorded in my memory track. Each one of us sits in the present, but we carry these absolutely extraordinary story of my past. What has happened to me, what people have said, what people have done, how I've been treated. It's a huge form of identification. And as I begin to sort of divest myself of identifying with what I do, identifying with what I represent, identifying with what has happened, it's like I come back into this incredibly sweet place, the permanent self, the soul, the seed that just sits so lightly in the forehead. And I love that feeling that the more I seem to let go, the speed of my mind begins to cool. And I just feel almost my consciousness rising. I'm moving toward a more elevated or pure consciousness. And at the heart of this feeling is, I am peace. I am peace. I am peace. And in this sweet state, this intrinsic, natural, original state of being peaceful, I love to then engage in the second step to pure consciousness, developing pure consciousness, if I can say. And that's really relationship. Relationship is in the DNA of the human spirit. We don't have to be taught. But this is the most unique relationship because it's the only relationship that's eternal, that's permanent. The relationship of I, the eternal self, the eternal soul, with the Supreme, with my soul Father, if I can say. And for me, I don't see my relationship with God as a concept or a belief or an intellectual idea or even a worship. it's a relationship. It's a loving relationship. And what is the sweetest experience for me? As this tiny soul, I sit in front of the divine of God as light. And in that light, I feel an unlimited ocean of peace, an unlimited ocean of love. And in a way, for me, meditation is like allowing myself to be completely loved. And the more I allow myself to be loved, the more I allow that love to seep into the essence of my being. It's like the purity of the feeling, the cleanliness of the feeling, the consciousness in which I'm sitting feels so elevated and so true. And it just really feels like I've naturally taken back the authority of my life and the authority of my mind. Shall we say the sovereignty of my thinking, rather than being a victim of my thoughts. I really feel like I'm just, enjoying thoughts. And when I do that, I really feel like I've come home to where I really belong. Because consciousness, I think, is the individual awareness of many facets of who I am. My thoughts, my feelings, my memories, my sensations, my environment. Consciousness of the self and the world around me. And actually, when I was at school, I studied Greek history. And I remember once that Plato said something like, to understand the world around me, I first have to understand the self. And when I understand the self, then I can see the reality of life around me. And in a way, I think what he was saying is that the lens that I have on life is really understanding the self. And when I look through that lens, I begin to see really what is happening. And often I say to myself, what consciousness am I in? What is the lens that I'm looking through on life? Because there's a saying, as is the vision, so is the world. As my lens, so is the reality I create in my life. That's my perception. That's how I see. I believe it's reality, but it's actually really, in a sense, my relationship with myself, who I am, that's creating that lens which I'm looking through. And today, often the lens or the sense of identity that I look through is that I'm a temporary body. That's my reality. And that really means that my experience of life is through the five senses. I, this subtle soul, this incredible eternal being, has put myself under the influence or in the jail of the five senses. And that's in a way how I connect with life. My experience of life is through what I see, what I hear, what I feel, what I taste, what I smell. That's my experience of life. And in a way, when I want to improve my experience of life, I see it as bigger, better, brighter, a sensual experience, an increased sensual experience. And so often, the experience of life is this sort of increasing my sensual experience, if I can say that, and so when I get better sounds, when I get better sights, when I get a better taste, then I feel, that is improving life. But as we all know, that when I taste something through my senses, I get a temporary high, but what happens? I come back again. And then I want it more and more. And so in one sense, it really becomes quite addictive. And so I look through the lens of my temporary body, and it's almost like my whole experience of life is through my senses, my temporary senses. And only to improve life, I need louder, better, bigger, brighter, etc. But us in the 4 a.m. Peace webinar, I think we're striving for something more. And when I really begin to look through the lens of the soul, the eternal self, it's a completely different lens. And one way I look at it is that the soul is really like the overname of 3 aspects of consciousness. And that is really 3 things I can say. The mind, which is the thinking power, the intellect, which is that judgment or assessment power, and the subconscious. And so what's really the process of consciousness? To me, it's like the 5 senses collect the information and throw it up on the screen of the mind. Imagine you're in a theater. You have a big screen in front of you. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you feel is thrown up on that screen. And then the intellect is assessing that information. The intellect is assessing how to respond. The intellect makes a decision. And every decision, every action leaves an impression on my subconscious. And so when my intellect is under the influence of my sense of identity as a temporary body, that's when my sense organs start to pull me. So I see some beautiful, tasty food, and my eyes see it, my mouth waters, and it's like the sovereignty of the self, the awareness of the self is forgotten, and the senses begin to drive my mind. You know, many times I think of my mind as like a sacred place. I love the idea that the mind is like a sacred place. Originally, the original state of the mind is so peaceful, so calm. But there's gateways into my mind. There's my ears. I hear a comment. I hear a criticism. I let it enter my ears into my mind, and it drives my thinking. You know, just one comment can drive my thinking. So it's like I, the mind, the sovereign, have given way to the sense organ of hearing to control how I think and feel inside. My eyes see bad behavior. I let it in my mind and it drives my thinking. I become angry. So once again, I, the sovereign, bow down and let the external world drive my thinking. My eyes see some beautiful food. And I'm very aware that many of you are fasting at the moment. And I know that's an incredibly wonderful thing to do. But you must experience sometimes that the mind starts to play games with you. The sense organs start to play games with you and starts to pull you into the desire for food. And that can be sometimes create a little bit of internal tension. And so depending on my lens, if my intellect is aware or thinking that I'm a temporary body, I'm under the influence of my senses. And that's driving all my desires. So many desires come in my mind. But when the lens is really of my eternal self, my permanent self, it's almost like I'm the sovereign in the kingdom, and I begin to rule my senses, not with force, but with love and wisdom. My senses start to dance to the tune that I want. And, you know, in this life, this spiritual life, I think that there's 4 states of consciousness which we can live in. And I think all of us touch all of these 4 at different times. But the first level of consciousness, if I can say, is what I would call this sensual experience, where really the soul forgets itself, and really my whole awareness is of the material world. I live my life through the senses. This is the culture of our world at the moment. And this is why we've become so materialistic, because we feel change or newness or new experience only comes through sensual things. But we all know that the experience through the senses can never satisfy me. And this is why often living this life, we feel quite peaceless, quite discontent, and quite disconnected, because the sensual experience is so limited. The second level of consciousness, I would say, is a creative consciousness. And this is really a consciousness of an artist, a consciousness of a musician, a consciousness of a scientist. So I'm not really connecting to the world through my sense organs. I'm actually creating ideas in my mind. You know, the artist paints the picture in the mind before it comes onto the canvas. The musician has the music going through the mind before they score it on the music sheet. Even the scientist creates the ideas. And so this creative consciousness is a little bit more elevated. The third consciousness I would perhaps call a religious experience. And this is where we become aware of a prophet, a saint, a holy person, a great teacher. And we connect with them. We remember them. And when we remember them, they are virtuous beings. They're holy beings. And so we get something from them. We feel something, we experience something. But I am still remembering a bodily being, a bodily form. And so in a sense, I still remain body conscious or under the influence of my sense organs once more. So even though I have a temporary experience of love or peace, I go back to that sensual experience once more. But the highest consciousness, I would say, is the supreme experience, or the pure experience, the pure consciousness of when I remember God as light. And then I also step and become aware of my own eternal form as light too. I, the soul, connect with the supreme. And this is the consciousness which really heals and transforms. And my own experience is that so many of us, when we step into the spiritual journey, we really yearn. We yearn from my heart to have a purity of consciousness, a purity of connection, a deep bond of love with the divine, with God, that will give me a certain sense of happiness and joy that perhaps nothing else can really give in life. And when we start, we often have a few experiences like that, and we're motivated. But many of us find that we sit and my mind wanders here, my mind wanders there, and it becomes a habit. In fact, it happens to absolutely everybody. Why? Because the myth of our culture, the deepest myth that we are all brainwashed with, is that peace, love, and happiness is out there, is outside. We get it through a sensual experience. And that's why the mind has the habit of wandering externally, looking for peace, love, and happiness. And we get it through the senses, but it's temporary. It's only temporary. So we start to have this feeling of going up and coming back, going up and coming back. And that leaves us with that sense of emptiness. And sometimes I think for many of us, the result is that we lose a little bit of confidence that really I can meditate well because my mind keeps wandering here and there and all over the place. And sometimes deep down, I develop this idea that I don't think I can really do this because of the fickle nature of my mind. And this is why, to really step into that pure consciousness, I have to build it step by step. And I think the first step is to really begin to know and experience who I am and who I belong to. And really start to go deep into that idea of being the soul, the incredible being of light, the point of consciousness. In mathematics, a point exists, but it has no length, breadth, or width. The soul is so subtle, it's not physical. And as I explore the depth of these ideas, I begin to start the deep journey to knowing who I am and connecting with the divine. And I'm not using the word meditation so much anymore, because I think for some of us, we feel I'm sort of on a, how can I say, a sensual experience or even a creative experience, and to sort of elevate myself to a higher experience, it seems too hard, it seems too difficult. And the word I really love is to remember. Remember who I am and remember the divine. Because the most natural thing for our consciousness is to remember. In fact, at every millisecond, I'm remembering. As we sit at the moment, and we're all on this webinar at the moment, your mind will remember something you just did, remembering something you have to do, remember what Peter told you in the introduction. You're plugging in, you're connecting constantly. And this is the amazing nature of consciousness, that you keep traveling and connecting. And when you remember, three things are happening. First, you're connecting. And whatever you connect with, you are influenced by that instantly. And when you are influenced, you have an instant feeling, an instant experience inside. And so in a way, whatever the subtle intellect, mind and intellect, wherever they travel and connect, you come under that shadow, you're influenced by that, and you gain a feeling inside. And so when you actually remember a family member and you have a loving relationship with that family member, you're really close. The instant you connect, you're influenced by that love. You feel calm, you feel secure. But if you remember a family member, a friend you're not getting on with, you're in conflict, there's a lot of differences. The millisecond you connect, you're influenced by that conflict. You feel disturbed, you feel peaceless, and the feeling in your mind is one of upheaval. If I remember the divine, if I remember God, if I remember the light of God, the beauty of God, it's like this is the highest connection. And then I have this elevated influence of God's vibrations of peace and purity. And then it's like I live stream that energy into myself, that pure energy. And in a way, this spiritual journey is to live my life, to fulfill my responsibilities in my family, to fulfill my responsibilities to my work, but constantly be on the pilgrimage to remember the highest being, the highest consciousness. This is all I really have to do. And when I keep connecting with God, what happens? That subtle thread connects. I'm really connecting. It's not just my imagination. I really connect. I'm influenced by that love and peace and power and purity. And the vibration in my mind, that beautiful, the feeling you have inside is so elevated. That feeling sustains the self. It sustains the others around me, and it sustains the atmosphere. My experience is when I wake up early in the morning and I have the depth of that connection with God, that feeling, that wonderful perfume I've created in my mind, that fragrance just lives inside of me, and I can feel it influencing the atmosphere around me too. With my true self and God, it's almost like I create a pure consciousness automatically, But if during the day I start to remember people, their behavior, their mistakes, what they've said to me, and I plug in to all the memories of the past, the anxieties of the future, what happens? I'm starting to remember things, and it creates a low vibration in my mind, a low feeling, a flat feeling, an empty feeling. So my consciousness isn't so pure. And even if I connect, if I remember my mistakes, my past, my weaknesses, that's probably the lowest vibration. And so in a way, the first step, I think, in really elevating my consciousness is to remember the highest being as much as possible. The second step I find on this journey to developing this pure consciousness is my lifestyle. Many people ask me, oh, I'm not very good at meditation. My meditation's not working. To me, it's not the minute, those times you sit to meditate. It's the other 18 hours of the day. Because there's a deep law of life that my thoughts are the seeds of my actions, and my actions influence my thoughts. So if during the day I gossip a bit, I'm a little bit angry, I get irritated, I react a bit, I put someone down. When I meditate, can I meditate? I don't think so. Can I really remember? No, because the inaccurate actions, they keep pulling me, they keep influencing me, they keep affecting me. And this is why I think to really support my journey to pure consciousness, I need to really look at my behavior, look at my interactions with people. And really, the more I'm benevolent, the more I accept people, the more I give respect to people, the more I say positive things. It's almost like that quality of action frees me to go beyond. So first, I need to know who I am and have that connection. Second, I need to observe my lifestyle. Third, I would really say to practice soul consciousness. And this is a really deep thing, because this is like the entry point to elevated consciousness. And I think, I've seen statistics, no matter where we live in the world, about 80% of us believe we're something more than this body. But what we are doing here is living as a soul. And as I go about my life, I do experiments in the laboratory of my mind to reprogram myself so that I experience the form of the self. I experience my nature. I'm immortal, eternal, non-physical being. That's the reality of who I am. That is really who I am. And as I begin to practice, it's almost like I'm preparing myself for the highest journey to meet God. The way I see it is, it's like God, the supreme being, the light, is on the FM wavelength. When I, the soul, am under the influence of my sense organs and my body, I'm on the AM wavelength. I'm in a gross state of consciousness. I can believe in God, but I can't really connect. I've got to go up to the FM wavelength. And so when I start to resonate in a soul conscious way, it's almost like I'm entering God's world. I'm moving into that entry point to meet God. The next step on the journey is love. And I think my experience, when the heart is full of love, how do you feel? Do you feel so easy, relaxed, light? Definitely understanding towards others. But when the heart lacks love, the mind can never rest. The agitated mind is looking, seeking, searching. Something is missing. The first need in life is love. The first desire is love. My experience is when that desire isn't fulfilled, a million other desires emerge. The desire for material things, the desire for praise, the desire for power, the desire for control, all these temporary desires that emerge through my sense organs begin to come. But the highest experience in life is the love of God. To me, that's the pinnacle of pure consciousness, is I, the soul, sit in front and I allow myself to be completely absorbed in the love of the divine being. And that divine being fills me with a purity of love that heals something so deep within me. And the result is, it's almost like I begin to take back my authority. So rather than my mind being a victim of my senses, you know, where I see something wrong and I think, and I can't stop thinking, and my thoughts are negative, but I have no power to stop it. Or I hear a comment and it hurts me and I can't stop thinking about that. I have no power. It's almost like I, the soul, become the sovereign, and I decide, I look through my eyes and I see, but I'm not influenced by what I see. I hear, but I'm not influenced. Of course, I'm aware, but I don't allow all my sense organs to push around my mind. And even when, you know, I'm through this, in this time of like Ramadan at the moment, where all of you are fasting, and sometimes maybe the senses run wild because I really get incredibly hungry, and I just, you know, even if I don't eat anything, my mind starts to imagine. The more I take back my self-sovereignty, I can even deal with that too. I'm able to have that sense of self-mastery and control. And I think that really the spiritual journey is this beautiful journey, step by step, of self-education, where I take myself into the purest consciousness, where I, the soul, resonate on the frequency of divine love with God. And that love is only a thought away. And whenever I need that quality of connectedness and belonging, it's there. And this is really where I think that not only do I remain on that pure consciousness, wherever I go, I spread this lovely feeling. And I think we're so receptive to vibrations. You know, when someone has a perfume, the perfume of their mind is very loving and sweet. It's so attractive. It's so attractive. The more I create this pure consciousness, the more I'm able to really spread that perfume in the atmosphere. I, the soul, in the natural master of my body and my sense organs and my mind. This beautiful journey of taking back my self-respect. So I would really just love to invite everybody just for a few moments of reflection and meditation. And if I can just request that, if I'm holding phones or devices, if we can just for just a few moments, sit quietly. And I'm going to offer a few thoughts, and please try to not just listen intellectually, but feel them, experience them, taste them. Let me begin my journey to pure consciousness. By visualizing my eternal self. I, the radiant point of light that resides in the front of the brain, in the center of the forehead. Just feel yourself sitting so lightly in the forehead. Gently, gently feel yourself withdrawing from identifying with what I do, all the labels of my body, and even my past. And feel yourself becoming lighter and lighter. I am a peaceful soul. And in this state of self-awareness, I become a child in front of my Father, the Divine. I see a beautiful jewel of light in the eye of my mind, radiating pure love. Just keep your focus on this jewel and feel these vibrations of love entering me. Allow yourself to be completely loved by this unlimited source of love. Feel this love entering the essence of the self and healing me. And experience this feeling of a silent mind, a mind at rest, a mind at peace with itself. The more I'm in connection with the divine, the more I feel loved and belonging, the stronger I feel. And it's like I feel I regain my inner sovereignty. I, the soul, the master of my mind and the master of my sense organs. If each morning I wake and before I begin to reflect on what happened yesterday and what I have to do today, let me sit quietly, become the eternal self and remember the divine. This will fill me with so much inner strength and enable me to face whatever is coming my way. Thank you so much. So I don't know whether there's a few questions. There's a little bit of time left for some questions. So I think, Peter, are you going to speak a few questions?
Now I'm unmuted. Now you can hear me. Yes. So any questions, please, please add them into the chat box and we'll address them. But Charlie, I sense your great love for God. This came through very, very clearly. And now I have an answer to why you always have a smile on your face and why you have smiling eyes. It's that purity we're all feeling. So Charlie, bless you and thank you for this wonderful pathway, this veil of warmth that's wrapped itself around the world, and the step-by-step, I've scribbled so many words down in perfume of the mind. But if, Charlie, first question from me, let's see, if you could have a magic wand, imagine you're sitting there now in Australia, you got a magic wand and you could wave it to all the souls of the world. What qualities would you like to radiate and offer to all of the souls in the world with a magic wand?
You know, I think, Pete, I would love to have the magic wand of the gift of self-respect for every human soul. Because, you know, I suppose I feel, look at our world, what a, you know, an incredibly challenging world, a chaotic world. Why? Because the first relationship, 7.8 billion human beings with this really damaged relationship with self, it spills out into every area of society and life. And I've really, in my spiritual journey, I felt, if people say to me, well, how have you changed? And I can say there's so many areas I've changed, but I'd say the main thing is that when you maintain a regular spiritual practice, the gift of self-respect, step by step, comes back. And to the extent you have self-respect, I think you can respect others. To the extent you have self-respect, that humility comes back again. And to the extent you have self-respect, you are loving, and people will automatically have love for someone with self-respect. So that's the wand I would just love, because, you know, I feel a lot, we're so intellectually clever today, but sometimes that first relationship is so damaged that we become so sensitive and so easily hurt and depressed and anxious. And we all know the story, because that relationship of me with me is so unhealthy. And it's the relationship with God that gives me back my self-respect.
It's interesting, Charlie, that there are 4 knowings: learning to know, learning to do, learning to belong, and learning to be. And we are human beings. We seem to have forgotten that little aspect. Perhaps the most important one.
Yeah.
Charlie, there's
you know, Peter, it's such a...
Sorry, Charlie, please continue.
No, I think it's such an interesting thing you said, because today often if you say to someone, how are you? They'll say, I'm busy. It's almost like their sense of identity. But I think busyness is a form of denial or avoidance, to look really deeply, because when we stop being busy and having things to do, how do I feel? And often this deep emptiness comes, this deep sort of chasm inside, this emptiness, this sadness, darkness, and it's so uncomfortable, that big void. just keep running, just keep busy, because it suppresses that feeling. And yet I think in spirituality, where we address that and we learn how to fill that inner void with God's love.
Yes, and this is where belonging is so important. I really appreciated what you said about remembrance rather than just meditation.
Yeah.
We have two questions from the chat box, and they're almost identical. After 4 o'clock meditation, it happened to me this morning actually. After 4 o'clock meditation, you can't go back to sleep. Is this okay? Is this quite normal, or do you need a little bit of nap afterwards?
You know, for me, I never, ever sleep at that time, because I just feel that it's almost like, sometimes I think when you meditate in the early morning, I think of my mind like soil.
Mm.
The awareness of your mind is like soil. And when the soil is so rich, you create such a quality of rich awareness that all the thoughts that grow out of that afterwards, even during the day, even when you're busy, you have to get things done. Because you did the work in the morning, the thoughts that grow out of that soil, the plants are healthy. And listen, we've got to learn to manage life, manage my health, be sensible. I think spirituality is, a lot of it is about common sense. Though I remember one of my friends said that common sense isn't so common. But, you know, I think we have to be practical and learn to care for my mind, care for my heart, care for my body. And each one of us is different. And so we have to learn a regime that is relevant to me, that keeps me healthy and happy mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So I don't sleep after the early morning meditation, but if people feel a need, it's okay.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Charlie. I think globally there's a call now for self-care and for self-love, and of course self-respect and respect to others. There's another question come in, and if I may ask one more. Yes?
Yes, of course.
There was a lovely line during your presentation. You said, you're influenced by what you connect with. And there's a lovely soul got a question for you. What's the easiest way to let go of expectations? Because there's that connection, influenced by the expectation. How can you let go of expectations?
Yeah, it's I think it's another form of lack of self-respect. You know, self-respect has so many shades and hues in a way. But, you know, I put this constant pressure on myself to be something. And I have these high expectations. And, you know, people who have high expectations are permanently disappointed, whether in themselves or with others. And I think that the more I meditate, I become realistic. And meaning that rather than dreaming, and so either I have massive expectations of what I should be, and then massive disappointments about what I'm not, I start to have a realistic view. And I know one of the biggest things that helped me on my spiritual journey is to really understand what I can do okay. There's some things I'm good at, and there's other things I'm not. And when you accept that, you don't have to be everything to everyone. You actually begin to accept yourself. This is such a massive step in life, because I found that when I accept myself and feel comfortable with who, and accept other people. If I'm constantly challenged by other people and their behavior, I feel it's often because I haven't fully accepted myself. I don't have a loving, sustainable relationship with myself. It always begins with me. And that's where I think, you know, this connectedness, the subtle thread of the intellect's amazing thing. And it's really what I've been focusing on for the last year or so, because it's instant, it's beyond time and space. You're sitting in the Middle East, you can go to the UK or Australia instantly, as quickly as you can go to someone sitting beside you. That's the wonder. And whatever you connect with, you're putting yourself under that influence. And when I realize that deeply, when I start to dwell on sadness and memories and behaviors, where is it going to lead me? It's absolutely obvious. And yet with all our wisdom, we just keep dwelling on these things that make us miserable. And that thing that if I'm not happy, there's only one question to ask myself: what am I remembering? What have I connected to? What have I put myself under the influence? And that's why what I've learned here is the more I fall in love with God, that's you naturally fall in love, then you naturally remember. And when you naturally remember, you naturally change. It's all very natural. You naturally fall in love and then you naturally remember. To me, that's the natural spiritual journey.
Yes, to have God in your heart and God in your life, you can't ask for more. There's a lovely question just come in again, another one, Charlie. And after you've had your 4 o'clock meditation and you're enjoying your soul consciousness, and you go out into everyday life, and then suddenly you forget about your soul consciousness. Is there a trick to bring back soul consciousness when you forget it?
You know, it happens to absolutely everybody. And this is the journey in a way, because the habit is to fall back into the subtle awareness of my body. Then I come under the influence of my sense organs. My senses drive my thinking. And then I just go back into that ordinary consciousness. And I honestly believe that what you're doing on this program is the essence of it. If I create the right awareness in the early morning at 4 a.m., that influences my day. But if I do a top up every hour, even for 30 seconds, just become aware. And I really have, one of my main focuses over many years is to do experiments. I do one experiment at a time in the laboratory of my mind to sort of transform the knowing into experiencing. You know how I know I'm a soul, I know I'm immortal, I know I'm eternal, I know the facts and they feel comfortable. But what we want to do is convert the facts into a feeling. And those experiments in the day sort of keep you engaged. So you, even though you're busy and you're responsible, you have one thing that you're constantly learning and practicing and educating yourself internally.
Interesting.
So that's
question.
how to keep the awareness. Sorry.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm getting excited with the questions coming in. So when you're in deep soul consciousness, do your virtues and powers just dissolve and you just are what you are? Or is it a time to actually boost your virtues and powers?
Soul consciousness means you are the embodiment of virtues and powers. It's a natural consequence. And that's the beauty in a way. You don't have to think, I must be more peaceful, I must be more detached, I must be more tolerant. The more I am who I am, you step back into that space. And I often say the aim of meditation is not to be peaceful. That's the result. The aim of meditation is to know and experience who I am. The automatic consequence, you are the embodiment of peace. So when you become the soul, it's almost like the virtues and powers re-emerge when the consciousness is pure. When you step back into the right consciousness, it's almost like you withdraw the virtues out of your subconscious and the powers automatically.
That's perfect. Thank you, Charlie. I think our time is almost up. But I've got one sneaky question, one last question for you. You're always smiling. You always have these smiling eyes. And you've been to Kuwait and you inspire people when you come. What's your secret for keeping you happy?
Well, the main thing really, I think, is love. I really feel that's the heart of that's the highest consciousness for me, and God's love. And that's what I try to do every morning at Amrit feel loved. But also, I think many years ago, I made a decision to enjoy my life and not get hung up on all the trivia. And especially, I think one thing that I've really educated myself and am educating myself is to see the value in everyone. I honestly believe that if I feel you get stuck, if you dwell on the weaknesses of people, you sort of feel stuck in your journey. You can't really go forward, even though you know who you are and you know God. And I feel an integral thing is to tune into the value of every other person. And I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a massive thing that helps you move forward.
Yes, to see the beauty in everyone. That's probably a very simple way of putting it.
Yeah, lovely.
Charlie, I want to thank you so much and bless you. I know it's late in Australia. I don't know what time it is where you are now.
It's 10:05 p.m.
So
past my bedtime.
Past your bedtime. You've inspired us, and we can feel your love. We can feel your warmth, and it's up to us now to help make the difference. Just be that image of virtues and values and the spirit that we are. It's as simple as that. So bless you, Charlie. Thank you very much on behalf of everyone. And thank you to the tech team behind the scenes who are pressing all the buttons, wherever they are in the world. And if you'd like to join the support group, the WhatsApp number is on the advertisement for Charlie's talk. So with our pure consciousness and vision for a better world, blessings to all. Take care. And thank you so much for all of you taking part. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you to the team. And thanks so much, everybody. It was just lovely to be with you. Thank you. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.